Wanting to get into some trail riding, I recently bought this pair of SIDI Crossfire 3 boots based on a number of recommendations from people who suggested they are great boots to buy. One of the things that people have mentioned about the SIDI Crossfire is that all of these elements like the buckles and plastics are replaceable, so as they wear out or break you can replace them individually and therefore get longer lifetime out of the boots. And in fact, one of the tips that I got is to replace the default sole that comes with the boots, that is, quite smooth, with more Enduro suitable sole that they sell separately. So I bought these pack of soles, obviously come in a pair or two based on the size of the boot, and I set off to change these. But I found it a little bit tricky and confusing despite the instructions that come with it. And having not found a great video on how to do that, I thought I will try and make one briefly. The first step obviously is to remove the existing boots, and the Crossfire have got these 4 screws and they're just an open and closed position. So when they are this way around, they are in a closed position holding this tight, and all you need to do is turn them at a 90-degree angle just to release them from the plastic underneath of the boot. Now when you do this, you don't see any kind of immediate feedback, so that was a little bit confusing. What you actually need to do is then, with a screwdriver, as nerve-wracking as I found it to be, to try and pry this off by getting under the sole and lift. Now what I found out when I tried to do it, it was actually really hard. It's less hard now because I've already done this. The sole is also glued to the boot. So what I needed to do is to just get under the sole and lift it like that, and in a few places. And then with the screwdriver, just really get under to be able to lift all the glue out. But once you've done this, with a bit of patience, you just lift section by section. And what you will see is there are these teeth that go into grooves. So you just have to work them one by one. It's a bit easier now than I found it the first time round. So if it's a bit hard, just persevere. Don't worry, this is actually quite rugged. I've managed to kind of bend it quite significantly and there's no visible damage to it. And then eventually you're able to pry this open, and you can see now where there was a dab of glue here and another dab of glue here that was holding it all in place. So now when that's removed, I was looking to put the other sole in. Now, one of the things that I've then noticed is that the sole came without the screws, and in fact it looked like it wasn't even sort of drilled through fully. So the first thing that I needed to do is to get the screws out of the existing sole. I've made sure that their alignment is in line with the holes that you can just about see here. And then it was just a case of pushing this through, and it's actually much easier than I thought it would be, and the screws all come off. So that can go to one side now. And then on the new sole, it was basically the opposite. I just placed the screws in, despite the plastic mold still being there. It's actually quite thin at the bottom. So once they're in and in the right direction, you're able to just push that through and it pokes around the other end. So I did that for the 4 screws. Now it's actually quite easy because I've already done it once, but the first time I had to push a little bit harder with the screw and then rotate it to take the rubber off. Now I have all the screws in place and they're all ready to be fit in. So the hardest thing I found is to actually fit the sole onto the boot. There are the instructions that show you how to remove it and then how to re-add it. And I think the important bit is really to work through the sequence, starting with the front of the boot, and then there's basically one side that has 6 kind of elements that need to go into the grooves, and the other only has 4. So working your way in the right order through them seemed to make a difference. I'm going to try and show you how I did it. It might be a little bit hard to do this on camera actually, but I start by sort of putting the top in and getting that corner one in roughly at the same time with a fair bit of pushing. And then they're more or less aligned. And so as nerve-wracking as it is, trying to get them in, not worrying about sort of pushing them with the screwdriver. And in fact, what I did is with the screwdriver, just lift the edge and get the element under. It's a little bit hard to do this on camera, so I'm going to do this off camera again. And now with the sole in place and all the grooves filled properly, the last stage is to plug these back into place. So it's just a case of pushing them in. The first time I had to push them a little bit harder because there was still the rubber inside. But now it's a little bit easier. Mostly I want to make sure that the orientation is right to match the hole. And then once they're in, just set them into the closed position, all 4. And you're done. Now I have both boots done with the Enduro sole. And so some people who saw that it was sort of glued before had glued the sole before putting that in. I chose not to do it. I don't think it's going to go anywhere even without the glue. So that is it. Hopefully useful. Hopefully it'll make the journey for others a little bit shorter than it's been for me.